Hi, I'm Frankie. Today, I would like to share with you my experience facilitating an enterprise knowledge exchange program for 10 organizations from 1st of April to the 5th of April 2002. Now, in actual fact, the question is this: what was the strategic focus of this program? The answer is this. In fact, this particular program was conceptualized to provide a highly interactive platforms for organizations to share with one another their practices in the area of knowledge management or the practice of knowledge management. In actual fact, I conceptualized this idea way back towards the end of year 2001. So after 5-6 months of talking to various organizations from the industry, finally 10 of them agreed to be part of this exciting exchange program in the area of the practice of knowledge management. And the 10 organizations that finally agreed were Tango Holidays, Unico Technology, Telecom Training College, ASEAN Bintulu Fertilizer, Shell Malaysia Trading, KBMG Asia Pacific, Hewlett Packard Consulting, Taylor's Business School, University Technology Mara, and Floreal Knitwear Limited, Republic of Mauritius. Of course, I would like to at this point highlight my appreciation to all these 10 organizations because they really had contributed to the success of this entire program, and we learned a lot from each other. So my purpose of this sharing session is to highlight some of my observations that I made during this program, because a lot of observations I made, I've used them throughout the last 13-14 years in my learning, coaching and consulting assignments. So I want to provide you a quick overview of what I have also learned myself from this exchange program. Now first of all, let's look at the first organization, Tango Holiday. So here I have all the papers that presented way back in April 2002. So for Tango Holidays to begin with, number one. Now, of course, I have to highlight my appreciation for the head of company at that point of time, Lisa Yap, and also to the head of company, Frankie Yong, for supporting this exchange program. Now, essentially, based on the presentation then, they highlighted very clearly the company's focus, that is, to globally provide vacational and recreational products and services to individuals, families and corporations through, let me just highlight this, through passionate customer care programs using continuous innovation, change and improvement. Now, to drive this company's focus, they put in place a very clear set of corporate philosophy, and it goes like this: to create and continuously improve a positive and effective working environment in which ideas, let me highlight ideas, for the future success of the organization are encouraged, nurtured and implemented. Now, so in this context, what really happened was this. Now, when they started initiating the practice of knowledge management, this organization way back then focused on 3 major areas, that is knowledge sharing, knowledge innovation and knowledge preservation. And essentially, they put these 3 key focus specifically in the area of customer service. Alright, so why? Because this organization is a very highly customer service driven organization. Now, just like I highlighted, they said passionate customer care program. So their mindset then were this: if we want to provide a high level of passion or desire to serve our customer and to provide them very good vacation experience, then I must make sure that I must be able to leverage on the collective critical knowledge specifically of all my customer service professionals. That's why at that point of time they shared very passionately that in the practice of KM, they were focusing, number one, their business case is customer responsiveness. And number two, managing critical area in this area. Alright, number three, focusing on developing frequently occurring issues directory to drive this area of business, because this is their core focus in the business here. So it was very, very obvious. Now at the same time, I realized at that point of time, the people working in that company, that's Tanko Holidays, they were young, they were very energetic, and of course from the very beginning, they were focusing a lot on developing strong culture, knowledge, management, practices, culture to drive the organization. So that was what I learned. What I learned then was that, my observation was, if your business is really focusing a lot on customer service, that should be the area that a lot of our critical knowledge should be put in, so that you can drive your business case. That was for Tanko Holidays. Now the second one, second company was Unico Technology. This company, slightly different. Now, of course I have to thank Mary Tan, who was the person that drove the KM practices in the company, and the head of company, Dr. Sam. Alright now. So let me just highlight a little bit from the paper she presented on the day. That was in April 2002. It says here, Unico Technology established in 1992 as a joint venture with Intel Corporative. This is the giant, the Intel company, right? It's a joint venture with Intel Corporative. And it says here at that point of time, a manufacturing location, Penang, Malaysia, and also Shenzhen, Suzhou, China. Alright now, and what is very clear is this. If you look at the strategic focus of the company, it says this: to be a globally competitive and successful business partner of choice in the electronics industry, esteemed by its employees and the community. Now this company fairly matured when it comes to KM practices. Why? Because before they even talk about knowledge management, prior to that, they already have two very matured, successful practices that they put in place. Now, one is the globally famous BKM. For those of you who are familiar with Intel Corp of US, you would know BKM stands for Best Known Methods. All right, and the other one is what they call as the CQ, known as Continuous Quality Improvement Process. Now, these two initiatives, these two mega practices were already in place, driving the organization's competitiveness. So when they introduced a more structured approach to knowledge management, they took knowledge management to support, to strengthen these two matured practices. So in other words, they see that the practice of knowledge management can be successfully integrated to bring these two practices to greater heights. And it was exactly what they did here. All right. So for Unico's case, they didn't start from zero base. They had a lot of things in place. It was a highly successful company at that point of time, and they used the practice of knowledge management to move the company to the next level of excellence. All right, that was Unico. Now, the third company that came in was Telecom Training College. Yes, all right. So the paper was presented by the head, Encik Ahmad Sobri Ismail. All right now. So of course, at the point of time, they were very clear in this exchange program. They would say, yes, we are clear about the 8 key focus of the practice of knowledge management. All right. However, if you look at Telecom Training College at that point of time, the major focus was on knowledge acquisition, because the college have what we call as students as their customers, participants. They also have a huge staff base at the point of time. Now, so in their mind, what we want to focus on is really in line with Malaysia's focus to be a learning nation then, because they talk a lot in 2001, 2002 on the concept of unlearning, relearning, continues to learn, continue to learn. So in that area, when they shared their practices, they were focusing a lot on transforming or strengthening a telecom training college to be a leading e-learning center or leading online learning center. So henceforth, they put a lot of KM focus in relation to focus number 2 of the model that I shared, that is on knowledge acquisition. So they were talking a lot very seriously and passionately, the whole team of them, on how they put modular learning, how they ensure that learning is distributed throughout the whole country. So they were focusing on both the mindset and the habits of e-learning and infrastructure to drive e-learning. So you can see that these 3 companies, yes, they were focusing on the practice of KM, but they came from totally different angle. Why? They were leverage on their existing capabilities, the nature of business, and the company's focus at the point of time. Then the 4th organization, we have this company then called ASEAN Bintulu Fertilizer, an operating unit of Petronas. Now, so we call it ABF. So ASEAN Bintulu Fertilizer, the presentation was delivered, of course, by Puan Hazia. Of course, I want to say thank you to her for making it successful too. Now, for ABF, quite similar to the case of Unico Technology, because ABF, when they start talking about the practice of KM, they already had very strong total quality management practices in place. So TQM was like a way of life in the organization. Then they asked themselves, how can we bring TQM to the next level of excellence? So then it came sometime towards the end of 2001, to be very specific. On the 6th of December 2001, I facilitated for them the first series of POKM feminization session. And then later on, I also developed a team of POKM facilitators and coaches for the organization. I also assisted in the formulation of the POKM policies and plans. And then what happened was that the entire angle of getting buy-in from the employees was this, everybody in the organization were very in tune to TQM. So henceforth, since the buy-in for TQM was so strong and the culture was so strong, what we then did was, alright, to make POKM successful, then we tie these two together by saying, securing competitive advantage through total quality management and driven by the practice of knowledge management in this knowledge-based, innovation-driven economy. So then they saw, well, that's great, because they see POKM is an engine. They can drive TQM to a next level of excellence. So buy-in was there. And eventually, after the exchange program in April, sometime to be very specific, on the 18th of September 2002, they officially launched the POKM journey. And I was there during the launching to deliver the opening address, how POKM can be further integrated into TQM and drive the organization to greater heights. So it was what I learned, integrating the practice of knowledge management into existing practices, into existing initiative to get buy-in. Because they don't want to be seen, we don't want to see POKM as if it's an additional something, inverted commas. It must be seen as a journey that integrate, enhance what they're already doing. Alright, now, so that's great. So then what happened was the number 4 organization that shared their practices in the area of knowledge management was this company called Shell Malaysia Trading, the downstream operation. Now, so this presentation was delivered by the HR manager in charge of human resource policy. Of course, I have to say thank you to Encik Ansari Haji Abdul Rahman that actually shared the practices of Shell. You see, Shell is a huge organization, alright? And however, it was clear from his sharing session that they started the knowledge management journey very strongly leveraging on human capital practices. Unlike in the case of Tenko on customer service, in the case of Unico Technology on BKM, best known methods, or ABF on quality, this was different. This was leveraging on the very strong, already existing strong human capital practices. At the organizational level, all right, my observation was this: at the level, at the corporate level, KM was related a lot to knowledge sharing. You see, Share Malaysia focused a lot on high level of transparency in all their HR practices, yeah? And essentially, I take from this particular slide, it says here, as far as the Share Malaysia training is concerned, right, they place key emphasis on sharing of knowledge, specifically, all right, from HR standpoint. They have a lot of open days, right? And these open days over here on a half-yearly basis, they target for company's performance. Open days for on a quarterly basis for business delivery of up-to-date performance. On a monthly basis, sharing concerning projects and initiatives. So at the level of the corporate, they focus a lot on sharing, both face-to-face and also electronically. However, very interesting is this, because it comes from a heavily HR or human capital angle, they actually highlighted a lot on the practice of knowledge management from a perspective of individuals. Yeah, and that's where you can see, therefore, there's one very special slide I want to highlight to you. This is their unique practices. Here it says here, you know, we focus a lot on personal development. So as a result, it says, the first bullet point here says, we want our staff to do this. First, identify your individual gaps. You do your own knowledge gaps identification using competency profiling or related tools. And then point number 2, it says here, then you want to promote and make sure staff focus on self-nomination for learning programs. We will share with them what learning programs are there for you to acquire knowledge, but the staff must be responsible to go through knowledge identification. Then you enroll yourself, focusing on knowledge acquisition. Then you go back, focus on knowledge application. So it's quite clear in their practices here. And point 3, it says here in this slide, it says the individuals are expected to shape their own future and development in Shell. Alright? And the last bullet point, it says here, jobs vacancy worldwide are available in the intranet of the company, and individuals are encouraged to charter their own destination in the world of Shell. Yeah? So henceforth, at the level of organization, they were focusing a lot on sharing among communities, among departments. At the level of individuals, they were focusing a lot on the 4 key focus that I talk about in my model, that is knowledge identification, knowledge acquisition, knowledge application, and then knowledge development, based on self-driven, proactive mindset to drive learning and to drive relearning. Alright, so it's very obvious for the case of Shell Malaysia trading, the downstream operation. This is what I learned. Yeah. And the next one was that the next 2 very similar. I would even say exactly the same. Yeah, because the next 2, they are already KBO themselves, which means knowledge-based organizations themselves. Why? Because the next one is KPMG Asia Pacific, a consulting firm, or a top consulting firm, and the other one is Hewlett Packard HP Consulting. So both of them, obviously, they are themselves knowledge-based organization, because ultimately they're selling knowledge. They're selling knowledge product, they're selling knowledge solutions to the client. So the issue of whether you practice or don't practice knowledge management in the first instance don't arise. Because why? Of course, basically, you have to practice. If you don't practice, how are you going to be able to churn up innovative consulting solutions for our clients? So obviously, from the beginning, they treat themselves as the knowledge workers. They treat themselves as the innovative knowledge professionals. So a need doesn't arise to explain to them the benefits of POKM, the importance of POKM at all. So in both the sharing session, the one that was done by KPMG Asia Pacific Regional Office was Cheryl Tay, and the one that was done by Hewlett Packard Consulting was Vincent Fong. All right. So of course, I want to thank these two individuals for sharing their practices. Now, in fact, both the practices were almost identical. All right. In the entire sharing session, they really put it very clear perspective. All right. Practice of KM, we know it's about mindset, habits. That's done. That's given already anyway. All right. So the entire sharing session was on two major areas. One, knowledge portal. So their concern was really how to effectively structure, improve the manner in which all the critical knowledge among the consultants, the support staff can be effectively put in place systematically in a knowledge portal that everybody can access to, because they need to access to this knowledge portal to retrieve critical knowledge and therefore able to respond to all their corporate clients. So they talk a lot about how much efforts they put in to structure their portal, the knowledge portal, and focusing a lot on knowledge preservation, retrieval, using critical knowledge, at the same time after using, how do we update and enhance what we use. That's one area. And the second area talk a lot, very identical in both the companies, really was collaboration tools. Because they say that essentially if you want to have a competitive advantage, we need to be able to leverage, real-time leveraging on the critical knowledge of the consultants and of all the staff. Yes, on one side it's good that we have this knowledge portal which we can access, but many a times when we're faced with challenges, for instance, we need to consult another person, and the other person must be able to respond to me, so be able to respond to my clients real time. So the second point they talked a lot about was about knowledge or collaboration, or enabled by series of collaboration tools. So they realize POKM is not about technology. Technology plays a very huge role to enable, all right, the practice of KM. So these two organizations focus firstly on knowledge preservation, driven by highly matured knowledge portals. Secondly, they focus on knowledge sharing and innovation, driven by collaboration tools. All right, and the last two you will see there for the last three. Yeah, the next one was Taylor's Business School. All right, now. So essentially, we introduce, or myself, introduced the practice of knowledge management into Taylor's from the time of 1st of November 2001 until June 2002. But in today's sharing, I will talk just about the physical architecture. If you want to know more about the practice of knowledge management that I introduced to Taylor's, perhaps you can visit my next sharing session. All right, now put it this way: the Taylor's Business School is an organization, as it says, a business school that offers foundation business programs. At the same time, of course, business degree programs. Right now, for this sharing session, what they donated to the table for the others to learn was how innovative physical architectures can create knowledge enabling environment to promote practice of care. All right, so of course I have to thank Angela Park because she was the one that brought the team around to share with them all the physical architecture that was built at that point of time in 2001. All right, Taylor's Business School, and how they use physical architecture to provide a conducive environment for both the students and at the same time the academics and the non-academics to embrace the POKM journey. All right. As I said, if you're interested, you come to my next sharing session. We're talking about our POKM at Taylor's Business School. All right. So the next one here is the last two that we have. Yeah. The cool one we have, I'll leave it to the last one. The other one is actually Floreal, all right? If you have visited my previous sharing session, you have known I've talked a lot about this organization from Mauritius, but just at this point, just to highlight differences, you know. As compared to the rest I've spoken so far, Floreal Knitwear Limited, the initiative in the practice of KM came from really top bottom, meaning to say, it started off as a top level management initiative Why? Because they put from the very beginning 850 employees in this entire POChem journey, and it started practically from zero base. Now, unlike the case of ABF that used POChem to drive TQM, the case of Unico Technology was to use POChem to drive their best known methods for the matter over here, and for example even the other two consulting firms. But this one was like starting from really zero base, and because of that they had the opportunity to come up with what we call as a very structured journey with 6 major stages, from the time of familiarization, selection of focus, selection of people, all the way through. This company focused a lot in the early stages of practice on knowledge acquisition and knowledge application, and a fair bit of knowledge sharing. Not so much of mature companies I've talked about earlier on. They focus on knowledge preservation and knowledge innovation, but this one is more of acquisition and more of application. And of course, eventually they launched the entire journey officially sometime in February 2002. Right now, and of course, as I said earlier on, if you wish to know more, you can go to my other sharing session, and I've talked a lot about the journey that Floral Knitwear took to initiate the practice of knowledge management. All right, now, so this is a very structured journey for a huge practicing community of 850 people. All right, the last one is this organization, and of course, yes, just to remind you that of course I must thank the head of human capital that drove this journey. Her name is Vina, and also the GM of the company is Mr. Roger. All right, now, so the last one here is this organization that is a university, similar to what Taylor's Business School does, but on a very much larger scale, you know. And this sharing session was done by the head of an institute within the university, and this person's name is Professor Dr. Ramat, who also completed my 5-day certificate in knowledge management program. Is also the assistant vice chancellor of the university. All right, now, so this young guy, inverted commas, young man here, really very innovative. When we went there to the university, he gave us a very good tour of the university UITM, and he talked about practice of knowledge management and the strategic role of a university to produce students that are relevant for this knowledge-based, innovation-driven economy. However, what I want to bring your attention to, which was what I learned the most, was that at that point of time I learned that actually in the university they had an institute, all right, and it's quite cool. The name of this institute here is called the Institute of Knowledge Management, the Institute of Knowledge Advancement, we call it. So this was the souvenir that was given to me by the team. Yeah. So this is the handbook. There are the little all materials given to me, and I want to talk a bit about this particular institute, because there are very few places or university indeed that have this kind of institute that focus on knowledge management, right? So I will look at the other little brochure here. You can see that this is the one, all right? This is the brochure that talks a bit about what they do in this particular institute. The head of the institute, in this case, is as I said just now, is Professor Dr. Ramat. Yeah, and it goes like this here. Perhaps I will just read the introduction, and it says here, the institute exists to further research, education, and training in systems and process development, as well as creating and diffusing on a wide range of areas of disciplinary convergence and across the disciplines. The institute's concern covers the institutional and governance aspect of the university as an organization, as it extends to the global environment, as well as areas of pertinent interest with regard to emerging paradigms and global transformations, such as quality management, change management, complex systems, science, technology studies, policy studies, future studies, and quoted very clearly in the area of knowledge management and intellectual capital, including cognitive science. Now this entire institute, it says here, is placed directly under the Chancery. Now this institute, very interesting to me, is this institute, it has 6 centers. The institute alone has 6 major centers here right now. And center number 2, the second center, it says here, is the Center for Human Capital and Knowledge Management. Now, and I want to highlight to you what they do in this case in terms of the Center for Human Capital and Knowledge Management. And it says here, the center's research is structured around 3 programs of inquiry. 1, university and the intellectual production process. Number 2, knowledge culture in higher education. And 3, intellectual capital. Right? These are the 3 programs of inquiry. Alright, their focus. Now, the objective, it says clearly here, this is one of the very few institute in a university there's this kind of focus. It says objective number 1, to map and capture tacit and explicit culture and processes in higher education. Number 2, to provide a depository center of university knowledge for competitive advantage. Number 3, to promote and extend investigations of the emerging areas of intellectual capital. Number 4, to explore the legal implications on creativity and tacit knowledge. Last 2, to exploit intellectual capital in the context of the knowledge-based economy, which means how do we leverage on intellectual capital. In the context of knowledge-based economy, ICT and globalization. And finally, it says here, the objective of this Center for Human Capital and Knowledge Management is to assess intellectual assets. Alright? So it's quite interesting because you have an institute within a university that places some key focus in the area of promoting knowledge management. Alright now. So essentially, I've just given an overview of my observations and what I've also learned myself from this organization. As I said earlier on, over these last 12, 13 years, indeed, I also have leveraged a lot of these things I've learned, observations I've made, and use it quite frequently in my work, that it's POCAM learning, consulting and coaching over this period of time. Now, so in conclusion, in this knowledge-based, innovation-driven economy, companies, to stay competitive, must seriously put effort, time, and invest money in having to focus on ensuring that they're able to systematically, strategically manage critical knowledge and use this critical knowledge as real assets to drive competitiveness, to drive sustainable performance, especially in these very challenging times. Because the ability to manage critical knowledge is really the key, real distinctive competency of organization operating today. Whether yours is a SME, a family-run organization, or a huge conglomerate, or a public listed companies. Alright, so with this here, I've given you an overview of this exchange program and what I've learned and my observations. And obviously, I look forward to see you in the near future. And of course, for today, I thank you guys for taking time off to be with me. And at this point of time, this is Frankie signing off. And as usual, I have to say bye-bye to all of you. Cheers. Take care.